to write by hand. Some of us write in a way that the writing looks as if it was penned by a child, while others have a very intricate cursive style that looks impressive to most. As you well know, others may write in a way people will hardly be able to read it, what we often call illegible. Whether the letters are joined with fancy loops or just printed, how we write might say a lot about us. You've likely seen people called graphologists in movies about criminals. The job of these folks is to study handwriting and either surmise the state of mind at the time of writing or get an insight into the personality of the writer. That's what we'll discuss today in this episode of the Infographic Show, Handwriting Analysis. What does it say about you? We must go back to the 16th century to find the first book that was written about handwriting styles and what that style was supposed to say about us. But it wasn't until the 19th century that this science, some now say pseudoscience, really caught on and started to be taken seriously by scientists. Indeed, graphology was seen as a breakthrough in understanding the human mind and all its confounding nuances and characteristics. In the late 19th century, the French psychologist Alfred Binet called graphology the science of the future. We might remember that this is the man that is said to have been the person that created the IQ test. The Americans, of course, wanted a piece of this future, and soon the US government was looking into the mysteries of handwriting and what it supposedly revealed about us. The American Graphoanalysis Society was formed in 1929, but the science always had many critics. It remained a big deal in the years to come, despite those who said it was patent pseudoscience. We should say that such tests were not only said to be useful for tracking down crazy killers, but as an evaluation of our personality. Testing handwriting, for some people at least, could be as useful as other personality tests, such as the Myers-Briggs personality test. If you don't know that, it was based on Carl Jung's belief that all humans have certain personality characteristics, that there are archetypal personalities in the world. So you might be introverted, intuitive, feeling, and perceptive, an INFP kind of person. But your handwriting held even more secrets to the Pandora's box of your personality. We will ask what you think about graphology, but first we think you should keep listening and then compare your own handwriting to what graphologists say, and then tell us what you think at the end of the show. We should say that not all graphologists agree, but let's have a look at what some say. So one of the most noticeable things regarding how we write is the fact that many of us slant our letters. Here we can invoke introversion or extroversion, because some graphologists tell us that if your handwriting slopes to the right, you are outgoing and open to new things. You are sociable. If it slants to the left, though, it might mean the opposite, that you like to spend a lot of time alone and are not so outgoing. Maybe you have no slant and all your letters stand straight to attention. Apparently that means you are logical, a kind of practical person who is perhaps not outwardly emotional. Now you have the slants down, what about the size of your letters? As you well know, some people's handwriting is tiny and some other people's handwriting is huge. Well, that's supposed to mean what you think it might mean. In that large means you have a big personality and constantly seek attention. Small means just the opposite. You are shyer and not in need of the limelight. As for medium, well, that just means you lie somewhere in the middle. You are a well-adjusted kind of person. Now it gets a little more complicated. We'll talk about loops. When we write in a cursive style and we write our L's, we often join the L's with a loop. Except some people have these big loops and some people don't seem to have much of a loop at all. We're told that if you have those big loops when joining an L to another letter, you're relaxed and spontaneous and can easily express yourself. If you have that tight, loopless L, it means the opposite. You're tense and holding something back. It's the same for E's. Some people write an E with the eye of the E as big as the loop, and apparently this connotes openness. If it's closed, you are a skeptical person and not easily swayed by others. Let's move on. What about the spacing? Because some of us have big spaces between letters and others small spaces. Well, if you have large spaces between letters, you're probably the kind of person who doesn't like to be crowded. Your letters are like you, meaning don't get too close to me all the time. Give me space. If your letters are close, it's the opposite. You get lonely easily, and you don't like to be by yourself much and enjoy constantly being around people. You might also have some negative traits, such as getting in people's face too much and not giving people space. Okay, what about shapes? You've all seen that some people write with a kind of bubble style, with very round letters. Others write with very sharp angles, which can look much more serious, while others have neither style. Yet their letters join perfectly so as to not show too much of a rounded style or pointed style. We're told that rounded means you should go on a diet. Just kidding. Rounded actually means you're artistic, creative, while pointy means aggressive yet intelligent and always curious. You're kind of fiercely intense yet clever as well. If you have that perfectly joined style, you're just very logical, practical, and you employ systems in your life. You think a lot about your decisions and likely make a lot of good ones. What about those I's? How do you deal with them? Do you always dot them? What kind of dot? We're told that if your dots are way above the stick of the I, then you have a very fecund imagination. If the dots are close to the stick, well, you're more organized and a stickler for details. What about those cute bubble dots? Well, they mean never mind how old you get, you still have a childish curiosity about the world. Don't mistake that for being childish, though. We are told it can also mean visionary. If the dots fall to the side, you might procrastinate a lot. If the dots are hardly even dots and more like a slash, well, this isn't good. We're told that if you do, then you are too impatient and have no time for people that make mistakes. You can now imagine how an eye slasher and an eye bubble dotter might not get along very well. As for those T's, how do you cross them? If you cross them almost right at the top of the T, you have a very good opinion of yourself and are optimistic most of the time. If you cross them in the middle, you're confident and well balanced. If you cross them with long strikes, you're supposed to be very determined and have lots of enthusiasm, but you might also be a bit stubborn at times. If you cross them at the bottom, you really suck. Don't shoot the messenger. We're told that the bottom crosses are lazy by nature and have little determination to do much at all. Now let's move on to some different matters. What about those margins we use? When you write on paper, do you leave a space at one side of the page, what we call a margin? It turns out that some people leave that space on the left, meaning that they live in the past and have a really hard time of letting go of things. Others leave that space on the right, which we're told means they always dwell on the future and are constantly worried about what will happen. It doesn't really help if you use the full page, as we're told that means you think too much and can't ever relax. It looks like graphologists give us no easy way out in terms of how we use space on paper. Another thing we all do is either press on hard, you know who you are, how many papers you've ripped and pencils you've broken, and some of us employ the lightest of touches. If you push hard, you're said to be trustworthy, dependent, but also kind of serious and sometimes uptight. If you have a light touch, you're sensitive, empathetic, but you're also lacking in strength and vitality at times. A hard touch might also mean you have loads of energy and feel intense about many matters, and a light touch means that you have no energy and don't want to tire yourself with such strong emotions. As for speed, if you write fast, you're impatient and dislike people that don't get things done quickly. If you're slow, you're organized and methodical. What about that signature of yours? Is it a scribble or a strange-looking thing that hardly anyone can understand? Or does it just look like your name? If it's a scribble, then you guard your privacy and you're a difficult person to understand. You might not want people to understand you. If anyone can read your signature, it means you're confident and not hiding from anyone. Then you have the capital I to refer to yourself. If it's bigger than your other I's on the page, you're arrogant and think you're better than others. If it's smaller, you're good in your own skin and harbor no such arrogance. But what about when graphologists are looking for people with very unstable minds? People that might go out and cannibalize their neighbor because the devil told them to do it. Well, we're told that people who have lost touch with reality don't really follow a form. In one sentence, their letters might slope all over, their loops might be closed and open, their T's and I's might take on different forms, their handwriting is all over the place. But this might also mean that you're unpredictable and have emotional instability and are often conflicted. You might not necessarily end up on the FBI's most wanted list. But before you mock this, while some scientists disagree, others still believe our handwriting says a lot about us. In 2018, a graphologist told the Independent newspaper, just from analyzing your handwriting, experts can find over 5,000 personality traits. We read one graphologist speaking to Psychology Today that said she helped catch many criminals using her skills. In one such case, she knew someone was lying, as you could see the writing didn't flow. The person had too much thought about what they were writing. Criminal investigations are often solved solely through graphology, and this case demonstrates that it's a very useful tool for leading police in the right direction, she said. So we might not discount graphology just yet. We might also stress one more time that many people in the scientific community have little or no confidence in graphology. For many folks, it's only as scientific as astrology. We'll leave it up to you to decide how reliable graphology is.